Holy tongue twister, Tim. Whenever we discuss Cliff Robertson's appearances on Batman, I keep trying to say shame with an M, but thanks to the original Western, I can't stop saying Shane with an N.
Well, Paul, I know just the thing to solve this conundrum. Try saying this. The blame for shame rests mainly in Ralph Ross's brain.
All right, here goes. The blame for shame rests mainly in Ralph Ross's brain.
I think he's got it. By Jove, he's got it.
But why would I want to say that? It doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't matter, chum. It's just an elocution exercise.
Oh, right, like you say clavicle and I say clavorcle, right?
Clavorcle?
To the bat poles!
I'm called Little Buttercup, dear Little Buttercup. Though I could never tell why.
A little louder.
But still I'm called Buttercup, poor little Buttercup, sweet little Buttercup.
Welcome to the Bat Poles, where we're jamming to the disco sounds of Gilbert and Sullivan. This is Tim in Tokyo with my brother Paul in Hanover, New Hampshire.
How's it going, eh? Yes, the now sounds of Gilbert and Sullivan.
This time, rather than yet another surf version of the Batman theme, we opened with Buttercup from the YouTube channel Noiseland, uploaded to YouTube August 8th, 2023. That's probably the most recent clip we've ever played.
Gosh.
And I've been addicted to this video lately. So everybody pause the podcast right now and go to the show notes and watch this video. I mean, the song is catchy enough, but the video shows that whoever Noiseland is, he or she must have a lot of knowledge of Batman 66 and a lot of love for it, I think.
I agree.
So the video draws from 5 different Batman episodes across all 3 seasons, and they're all like music-related parts of those episodes. No minstrel, but from the clip I just played, you surely caught that the Nora Clavicle Pied Piper bit is there, and Batman singing Buttercup in the Black Widow arc. It also includes both occurrences of the Batusi in Hi Diddle Riddle and the Pharaohs in a Rut, and the player piano roll machine Death Trap from the Chandel arc.
Yes, that was a brilliant addition to the video, I think.
And so in this video, we're watching all of this on a TV that appears to be sitting on top of the Bat computer. And there must be like a computer-generated Bat cave, and the Batmobile looks a little bit off, but the Bat Cave looks a little too small, but like the atomic pile seems spot on.
Yeah, and I thought that the if it is digitally generated, and it must be, I thought that the simulated camera movement was much more convincing than such things usually are in even professional CG. Like
right, yeah, the camera angle on the TV is kind of changing during the video, and I didn't even notice that until I'd watched it several times, like, oh, we're moving a little bit. But yeah, it's very natural, like there's actually a camera involved pointing at an actual TV on top of the actual Bat computer.
Yeah, so the TV is pleasingly retro-looking as well. I mean, it's definitely not an HD TV.
And it has a bat on it.
Yes, it is the Bat TV.
I found myself really enjoying the fact that there are 2 bat spins in the video. And, there's nothing in the music necessarily that suggests them. There's no da in there. But after I'd watched it a few times, I realized that both of the bat spins come in at the ends of musical phrases. Like after 4 bars, and you're kind of taking a breath into going to the next 4 bars, and that's where the bat spin comes in. Only 2 of them, but it's really shows a lot of care, I think. You didn't just plop them in anywhere.
Right. I agree. Yeah, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's paced really intelligently. I did get a little bit tired of the return to Batman singing, the lyrics of Buttercup, I think he goes back to it maybe 8 or 10 times.
Yeah.
But I realize I've heard a lot of dance mixes of other songs where, that comes up a lot. And really, it's a dance mix. So the point of it is to, make you dance more. So if the chorus is the hook for dancing, then play on, I guess.
Well, and there were a lot more repetitive remixes of records in the 80s.
Sure, of course.
And we should also mention in the latter part of the video from The Pharaoh's in a Rut, it shows, the Batusi and then going into the bat fight because, of course, Batman's supposedly hypnotized until then he suddenly punches a couple of henchmen. And in the music, there are sort of trumpet-ish stabs that are syncing with the supered sound effect titles in the show. They're just right on time with the music. So that's also really cool.
Yeah, it's really well put together. Who knows? I wonder if the creators get some kind of advertising revenue back from posting this on YouTube.
Yeah, probably. They seem to be getting a lot of views.
Getting a lot of hits.
Took a glance at the Noiseland channel, and it seems to be all tracks based on clips from old TV shows, with a particular interest in Columbo, apparently. There are at least 3 clips that came from Columbo episodes.
I've never watched Columbo more than a few seconds at the beginning or ending of episodes. I wonder if Columbo sang a lot.
Well, I don't think so, but one of the Columbo clips is actually of a Johnny Cash appearance on Columbo.
Oh.
You never see Peter Falk in that one. It's all just, Johnny Cash on stage doing a song, and there's an audience there, and so
nice.
And it's on that one's also on a retro TV that the camera, quote unquote, is pointed at.
And what's the setting for that television?
Well, it looks, probably like a 70s TV.
I see.
Of the era of Columbo.
Well, I mean the space that it's in, as opposed to the Batcave.
I don't remember now. It seemed to be just like a bedroom or something, I think.
Interesting. I'll have to have a look. I can think of other good candidates for that kind of treatment, though, like the By the Light of the Silvery Moon from Car 54, Where Are You? Remember they have a barbershop quartet, I believe, in the police station, and you get to hear Herman Munster, singing bass while Mama sang tenor and me and little brother, we got right in there, or whatever those lyrics are. Herman sang bass. And he sang tenor.
Yeah, or you could do Herman Munster singing Dry Bones.
That's even better. I wonder if they have a suggestions box.
Possibly.
Well, nice find, Tim, as always.
Yeah, I can't even quite remember how I found it. If it was just suggested by YouTube or if I saw it on social media somewhere. But and I bookmarked it and kind of forgot about it at first. And then a few weeks later, I was like, and we were getting ready to record this episode. Like, oh, yeah, I found something I wanted to use to start a Bat Pulse episode.
Right. Well, if anybody recommended it to us and we simply forgot that they recommended it to us, you should pipe up out there in radio land or podcast land.
Okay, so this time we are talking about memo about the pilot audience report where people were, I suppose, paid to watch the initial arc, High Diddle Riddle, smack in the middle, and comment on it. Now, this memo is dated January 14th of 66, so that's after, just after the first arc has aired on the 12th and 13th.
Right, and we have, according to the subject line here, we have ASI test results. ASI stands for Audience Studies Incorporated, which did this kind of audience surveying and research and actually gave them dials to turn to register their appreciation or lack thereof of various scenes and moments in the whatever films they were asked to test. The dates here are the adult sample of that ASI tests took here was on January 4th, 7th, and 8th of 66. And the child sample took place on the 9th of January of 66. So these were all kind of crammed in together.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it was all so soon before the broadcast. I would have thought that it would have been farther ahead. Maybe they said like they've already decided to air it and they're still testing it.
Right, and did they have time to decide to air it without a laugh track before, after this test? I don't suppose that would take a tremendous amount of time because it would be a separate track that could just be removed,
apparently they had the laugh track version and the non-laugh track version probably, and maybe this test determined which one of those they used.
Right, if they've got them both in hand, they could just switch it out if they changed, if this changed their minds of how Dozier was going to go ahead, or how Fox or ABC was going to go ahead with it.
I looked into the names at the top of this memo. It's addressed to Edgar Sherrick. Edgar Sherrick in the 50s was a sports producer at ABC. He created Wide World of Sports in 1956. In 63, he became vice president of programming at ABC, and in addition to Batman, he was involved in the creation of Bewitched, That Girl, Hollywood Palace, and Peyton Place. Now, Wikipedia says he created them, but I don't think we can attribute it solely to him. But
no, I would say he was probably the kind of developer in charge of production or something along those lines.
And the memo is from Joseph Schrier. Couldn't find very much about him online, but I did find that he was director of program development at ABC.
Okay.
And in 1969, he switched to the advertising field.
Okay, so he left ABC altogether.
He left ABC, went to an ad company. Yeah. And so this PDF, of course, this is also in the show notes, along with Buttercup and whatever else we realize we need to put there.
Is this document originally courtesy of Oscar at University of Wyoming?
Yeah, I believe it was.
Thanks, Oscar.
Looking through the Oscar stuff, and which I haven't had enough time to do for over these years. And like, oh, this sounds interesting.
And it turns out it is. We thought maybe we would double up this episode and have, half an hour on the audience report and half an hour on something else. But we decided, well, if this episode turns out to be a bit short, that's fine. But this is worth doing some more digging into and spending some more time with.
Yeah, and we're often surprised at how long we can go on about any particular bat topic.
Yes, that's right. And, always leave them wanting less. That's our motto to the bat polls.
So, yeah, we already mentioned the laugh track was one thing mentioned in this memo, and the difference, whatever differences there were between the audiences that got the laugh track and those that didn't. But it seemed like it didn't make that much difference. Some people were still confused by the show, even with the laugh track. They couldn't tell if it was supposed to be funny or not, or they said that the laugh track was inserted in the wrong places. This was a serious scene and there was laughter.
Right, yeah, inappropriately timed. That was interesting, that there were complaints about the laugh track itself.
Well, I'm thinking, just some kinds of comedy laugh track just doesn't work. If it's like too subtle or, that some people might not even get the joke because it's just so tongue in cheek or whatever. Or a few months ago, I found on YouTube Fresno, the limited series, like soap opera parody that was on CBS in 1986, and I never saw it then. And it's hilarious, but you kind of have to be in the right mindset. And laugh track just wouldn't work with that at all. Because some of the jokes are kind of a slow burn thing where as it kind of goes on, you say, oh, okay, I get it. This is funny. Ha, ha, ha. But so you kind of made me think about that.
Well, yeah. And I'm thinking of, like genre and laugh tracks. It my sense is that there's probably some pull against the laugh track in the first place and within Dozier's team, because the costumes would probably, teach you to laugh all by themselves or signal to the audience that this was supposed to be humorous, at least the older audience, the adult audience. Whereas Get Smart, for example, with all the shooting and, relatively high number of like corpses left in the wake of the Chaos Control War,
Compared
the
to
laugh track
Batman.
is kind of necessary. Yeah. Otherwise, the audience might actually not quite know how to take it. Anyway, that's just a random thought.
So, Schrier observes that the kids mostly didn't get the humor, or they didn't want to laugh at it. They were taking it seriously. And, of course, we know how true that is. The daddy, don't stop laughing at Batman phenomenon. It's not funny. It's serious. He's in a jam here.
Right.
Dad's
I thought
rolling on the floor.
Schrier is pretty shrewd to notice that the kids would rather not laugh, that they're, maybe objecting to it a little bit or trying not to laugh or just refusing to think that it's funny, rather than just being, the jokes going over their heads. He seems to have a pretty good understanding of why the kids might not want to laugh because they're invested in taking Batman seriously.
Mm-hmm. I wish that we could watch the laugh track version. I wish that it were available somewhere. Although, we got a taste of it some time ago watching what clips were then available of The Late Show with Ross Schaefer from 1988, when they showed a clip from Hi Diddle Riddle and the audience in the studio was laughing. And it really made me cringe. Like, no, there shouldn't be laughter. Stop it. This is serious. Batman's in a jam.
On the other hand, it's a sign of the longevity of the humor. So that's not a bad thing to know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the audience was really into the whole Bat thing.
Right.
Even 20 years after it was canceled.
Yes, only 20 years.
Yeah, only. I mean, that show is now going on. Well, I don't even want to say how long ago 1988 was.
I know. Well, I find this with my own college students, 19, 20 or so, that they really do think of anything that's like 10 years old as like almost too old to be paid attention to. Like it's not worth it. Or, those were back in the days when, film technology wasn't very advanced. They very frequently have this kind of fantasy that, certain kinds of editing even aren't done 10 years ago because they couldn't. Because the technology wasn't available, and they back into that position just about every time they see something that looks outdated to them in whatever way.
I mean, that's true in some ways. Of course, there was no CGI or whatever. I mean, 10 years ago there was.
10 years ago there was plenty of CG.
But
20 years ago there was plenty of CG.
Yeah, like in the 60s there wasn't. So.
Sure. But I think of our own reactions to all of our friend Kyle's older brother's comics from the 60s and 70s. I mean, some of those Kirby, like Commandy and One Man Army, OMAC, those comics must have been about 2 years old or 3 years old when we first went to Kyle's house.
Or I think even maybe less than that.
Yeah, and we thought they were all like ancient.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised because we're going to be talking about OMAC on Deconstructing Comics, and I was thinking it was from the 60s, and like, oh, this is from like 1974.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
The first year that we went to Kyle's house.
That's right, but it all seemed very, very, archaeologically dusty to us.
Anyway, so one thing that this memo pointed out, he points it out, and it made me kind of think about it. A problem with Hi Diddle Riddle is that Robin solves nearly all the riddles.
Yes, he does, and some viewers in the test group objected to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it made Batman look stupid to some of them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is page 3 of the memo. Adult reactions to Robin were quite the same as for Batman in terms of believability of the character, that is, not much. Although some viewers thought the actor was, quote, good for the part and, quote, he is a cute kid, quite a few viewers felt he was, quote, too eager and juvenile, a smart aleck, too good to be true, a kid who knows it all, and too smart.
Yeah, in fact, I watched High Diddle Riddle, and I kept track. In part 1, Robin solves 5 riddles, and Batman solves 0. Although Batman interprets the meaning of one of them. In part 2, Robin apparently seems to solve 3 riddles, and Batman 1, but then it turns out that one of the ones that Robin solved, he got wrong.
Yes, the final one.
The final one. But still, I mean, it's definitely weighted in Robin's favor. And I'm thinking about, why did Semple do that? I think he probably wanted the audience to know that Robin was smart and helpful to Batman, but I think he overdid it because, Batman had not yet been established as being smart.
That's right.
And you go ahead in the first episode, have Robin solving all the riddles, then, it does make Batman look stupid.
Yeah, this caused some viewers in the sample on page 3 to say, let's see, a number of adults did not think Batman was intelligent enough, particularly since he was not able to solve most of the riddles. Quote, kind of stupid, he should be smarter than Robin, can't he figure out the riddles himself? And, quote, for being the leader over Robin, he seemed awfully unintelligent about matters, end quote. So maybe, just a speculation here, maybe Semple thought that if Batman was right about the final riddle, that is that, Robin thought that the riddle meant that Riddler and the Molehill gang were going to rob a bank. It turns out they were going to steal the precious stamps from the stuffed mammoth in the final scene. And that maybe Semple thought that if Batman were right about that, the really big heist that was the climactic moment of the arc, that would kind of compensate for the fact that Robin got the other ones. Like, Batman's got more experience, so he was able to read with Riddler as well as with crime and blah, 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 that he was able, therefore, to interpret the riddle accurately. But that's not enough. And the fact that he reinterpreted it gets lost in the shuffle if you're not really listening for it. Mm-hmm.
And I think, especially, in this vein, the most egregious scene is maybe in part 1 when Batman tries to arrest Riddler at the art gallery. Because, Robin tells him to put on the bat cuffs. And then, when the photographers show up, then Batman's like, huh? What? What's going on? And then Robin figures out what the tip-off was about made the boat a cigarette lighter. And Batman's just kind of sitting there dumbfounded.
Yeah.
All I can muster is out-riddled.
Yes, it is rather bumbly.
I mean,
the whole business.
I think that this problem was... I think they got it more right in later episodes. Batman was shown to be smarter than that.
Right.
Like the rest of season 1 and so forth. But, yeah, I think Semple erred in the first one. Yeah,
and it's not that his thinking wasn't in the right place, because I do think that he intended for Batman to come out kind of on top. Robin proves his mettle as a deducer, but Batman ends up being, the necessary rudder for the team. But in later episodes, what happens is usually Robin jumps to a conclusion and Batman slows him down in the moment, at the very moment at which Robin makes the claim or reads the riddle or interprets the joke, if it's the Joker or what have you. So, frankly, no audience, especially an audience of kids, is ever going to remember that, Robin, and then Batman at the end. What they're going to remember are the individual moments, most likely. It's only a 25-minute show with credits.
Well, I think there are a number of episodes where Robin solves a riddle and Batman says, right. So it shows Batman got it, too. It's just Robin was the one who spoke it, but...
Right.
Batman also got it.
Or Batman might have gotten it first, and then he waits for Robin to catch up.
Yeah. Or, Robin reads the riddles and Batman says the answers. There's some scenes like that also. And, that really works. We want Batman to be that smart that he can just immediately solve these riddles.
Right, and he doesn't seem as though he's vying for attention or, trying to beat Robin at those moments. He seems like a mentor, who wants to bring Robin up to, his highest level of crime-fighting deduction.
Yeah, and some of the people in the study thought that he seemed like he was too full of himself. Mm-hmm. Batman, in spite of the fact that he could hardly solve any riddles.
That's right.
Maybe because he couldn't solve any riddles, it was another maybe symptom of that he had this unearned confidence.
Right, his kind of over-formality might have read as pomposity and hubris, like he didn't understand how little he knew.
Yeah, where I think Semple was trying to get at was that he was square.
Right.
Which, becomes clearer later, I think, like in scenes where other people are drinking booze and he's drinking milk.
Or in this episode, freshly squeezed orange juice, the Batman special.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's in What a Way to Go.
Greetings from Wayne Manor Memoirs, a podcast dedicated to exploring the Batman mythos.
Each episode, we research a character, story, contributor, or piece of pop culture related or adjacent to the Dark Knight,
and try to understand why these topics are important to the Bat mythos. I'm Joe.
I'm Kendall, and some of our favorite topics include the transformation of Mr. Zero into Mr. Freeze,
the early appearances of the Riddler,
Booster Gold,
Commandi,
Jim Aparo,
and many, many more. Check out Wayne Manor Memoirs every other Friday, wherever you download your podcasts.
And follow us at Wayne Manor Memoirs on Facebook or at W Memoirs on Twitter.
Until next time, Bat Fanatics, be brave
and stay bold.
Edward and Alphonse Elric, as a result of attempting the forbidden act of resurrecting their mother with alchemy, have paid the price. Edward lost an arm and a leg. Alphonse lost his whole body, his soul now attached to a suit of armor. Together they search for a way to make their bodies complete again and uncover a deadly plot by their country's military rulers. That's the concept of Hiromu Arakawa's Fullmetal Alchemist, one of the best manga ever made. Tim and Patrick are rereading Arakawa's masterwork in search of interesting sound effects, translation errors, goofy humor, and, oh yeah, a great story. The podcast is The Law of Equivalent Exchange, a chapter-by-chapter look at the manga Fullmetal Alchemist. New episodes every other Monday, wherever podcasts are found. What are you willing to exchange?
Here's something that really stuck out to me because of my interest in camp and queer readings of Batman, is that Batman was tagged by some viewers of this sample as gay. Mm-hmm. A number of viewers criticized Batman's physical appearance as being somewhat disappointing. This is page 3 again. Quote, not athletic type. Not handsome. That's a little strange. Too fat. Okay, come on, tell us what you really think. And not actually a fine physical He-Man athletic type. Well, that's slightly, sugar-coated, I guess, but still too fat is what it's saying. Some adults criticized his masculinity. Homosexual tendencies of Batman, quote, too feminine, end quote, just a little too effeminate, quote, and finally, queer, quote unquote, and quote, should be more masculine, end quote. Okay, maybe we have to place ourselves in the mindset of a 66 audience to really understand why he reads as so queer, but do you suppose they're actually saying that, without realizing it, that he's just very campy, like he's overplaying the part, and that might have read instantly as queer? Yeah. Or is it just because he's erudite, because he speaks in, $2 words from time to time? He doesn't even do that much of that in this episode. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, some people probably pictured superheroes as like, the way that they would have been played in a 40s serial, in the movie theater where, like, I've come to save the day kind of hero.
Right, no nonsense.
And, Adam West Batman doesn't talk that way.
No, and he doesn't talk like this either.
No.
Somebody buy Christian Bale a huge bottle, like economy-sized bottle of Lavoris. Man's got a sore throat, needs to take care of it. Mm-hmm. So that really grabbed me, though, that, there seems to be buried in that paragraph of the study or the report the possibility that it was simply his campiness that read as queer kind of instantly because of the relationship between queer and camp. They might have been inseparable for a lot of audiences who, were just sort of getting used to the idea of camp.
Well, and we know that not everybody gets satire either. So some people, that's intended to be a kind of satire, I guess. But if people didn't get that, that it was supposed to be funny that he was so square, they might make them think that he was effeminate.
Right. In fact, Tim, I want to confess that my main problem in my social life has always been that I believe everyone understands satire, and I'm completely wrong about that. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, well, try communicating sarcasm to Japanese people in English.
Well, your 4 children totally get it, I think.
Well, yeah, they grew up with me. But.
Yes, they've got it in their DNA. Thank goodness.
And puns.
Indeed. My son is all puns, too.
So, there was a bit on page 1, which was, right on target, talking about how much people liked the technology and the car and the Bat Cave. That's obviously a big selling point of the show. I know we were into all that when we first discovered it.
Oh yes, one of the elements, and you reminded me of this last week. One of the elements of the Bat costumes that we kind of articulated ourselves when our mother sewed us those wonderful Batman and Superman capes and cowls and had us wearing domino masks to complete the bat cowl anyway. I made I'm betting it was a Highland potato chips box that I used, or a Hy-Vee potato chips box. They used to come in boxes with bags in them like cereal.
Yeah. Children back in the ancient days, potato chips came in boxes.
Yes. We beat the potato flour with our, rock and pestle back in those days, and then we put it all in a box after we baked them with the finest corn and fish. Oh, wait, SCTV reference. Sorry. Anyway, I made a bat belt, a utility belt, out of probably Highland potato chips cardboard box, and also a batarang to put
or
on
maybe
it because,
we thought it might have been a regular belt that we just attached some cardboard things to.
That's true, because even I would probably understand that a cardboard belt wouldn't hang together.
No matter how much cellophane tape you put on it.
Tape and cardboard. The basic tools of Tim and Paul's, youth as engineers.
If they could build the Empire State Building out of it, they could build anything. Cardboard and tape.
Indeed. So yeah, we were totally into the gadgets, but I kind of liked one phrase here. Electronic action was good. It sounds a little like they, turned on a Android porn movie or something instead of the Batman show. Oh, electronic action. I love it. Sorry, not very family friendly, but it'll probably go right over the kids' heads. One of the things that kind of didn't really shock me but surprised me a little was, maybe just for the sake of kind of buttering up his own bosses a little bit, or, giving them the good news first. The first page of this report is quite positive, but that's not what the numbers say. The numbers are not all that positive. So the report here is front-loaded positive responses, and maybe that's just because these are the things that the showrunners are going to want to stress in the future. If this is what the audience likes, then it makes sense for it to go right at the top, but it does kind of, belie what comes later, which is, exactly how many people thought that they would watch the show once it hit the airwaves. But we can get to that in a minute. We should spend some more time with the report and then move to the numbers, I guess. Anything else in the report that really struck you?
Well, so the fact that apparently both the kid audience and the adult audience kind of checked out on the GCPD scenes.
Yes.
And the scene of Bruce and Dick in the Wayne living room where they
watching TV.
Watching TV at the beginning of the scene anyway. It's characterized as they're watching TV, and of course that wouldn't be interesting. But they're hearing the news report about Riddler suing Batman, and Batman's going to have to reveal his true identity. But then
And the case is probably futile anyway.
They turn off the TV, and Bruce is saying he can't figure out what to do. He's been dusting off his father's law books, and
Seems like a bad idea to dust off law books from 20 years earlier to try to
nothing has
come up with
changed,
some
so this will be perfect.
new legal theory. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that is kind of a quiet and uncharacteristically dark scene. That's the darkest we ever saw the Wayne living room. In the later episodes, it was much brighter in there.
Yeah, that's true. It's dark in the sense of mood, but also low-key lighting makes it, even more gloomy looking. And, of course, Alfred is really kind of a harbinger of doom throughout this episode or throughout the arc. He's the one who's always saying, what a bummer if you had to hang up the bat cowls because of this.
Yeah. Actually, if I remember correctly, I think in the pilot, the sets were, I think, in a different location. And, you don't really see, this. We get a different angle on the Wayne living room here than we got in the other, later episodes. We're just looking straight at the fireplace, and we can't see that window that would be off to the left at all, I don't think.
I think we might when we first meet Bruce as he walks toward the fireplace and mention, this is when he's talking to members of the Foundation.
Oh, that's right. We were in there earlier, right.
Yeah, the first appearance of Bruce out of cowl in the episode. In fact, the first appearance of Batman or Bruce at all, I think, in that episode.
But still, it seems like a different angle from what became normal.
Did the Shakespeare bust room with the bat poles seem different to you as well? The decor looked a little different.
Yeah,
the wallpaper was a different color.
We read about it before. Because when they moved the set after the pilot, they made some changes in there. Yeah, I think the wallpaper's different, and I'd have to sit down and compare to a later episode, but.
Yeah, I did notice a leopard head on the wall, way, way off in the left upstage or downstage corner of the study that I don't ever remember seeing. But because I wasn't paying all my attention to the figure moving toward the bat phone there when Alfred goes in, I might have just been scanning the image differently.
By the way. Side note here, I noticed a couple of things watching Hi Diddle Riddle and Smack in the Middle again. Kind of some problems, minor things. But so in part one, when Batman and Robin are outside the gallery before they bat climb up to the window, somehow Riddler's able to call the bat phone.
Yes, and there's no explanation of how.
Right. And then in part two, when he has Robin captive, he has Robin call Batman via the GCPD. So why can't, if he somehow can call the bat phone in part one, why can't he do it again in part two?
Good question. Good question. Did you notice also that Robin drives? He maybe only drives about 10 yards, but he parks the Batmobile at the What a Way to Go club. And there's no mention whatsoever of his lack of a driver's license or the fact that he's only 15 or 16, whatever he's supposed to be.
Well, and something else, going back to what we talked about last episode with the lack of a Bat Bible for the show, we see there's a start button, but when Batman is still drugged and he goes out to the Batmobile, the cop says, "Give me the keys." And so there are keys. So does it have keys and a start button? I don't understand how you start the Batmobile.
Well, that's what I was thinking. That it would be dumb just to have a start button and no keys. Because then anybody could hit the stupid start button.
And that's what Riddler tried to do. But, obviously Riddler didn't have the keys, but he thought that he could drive away in the Batmobile.
Right. Well, he hits the start button, but Robin, before it says start button, the plate says, what is it, an anti-theft device.
Right, it's the fake start button.
Yeah, right. And then Robin flips the plate down that says start button instead.
Right. Maybe there is no real start button. It's just the fake start button is all there is. And it really does need really does need keys.
Yeah, or you might have to put the keys in and turn the key and then press the start button for ignition. But it's that's inside baseball, I guess. It's electronic action. Love the electronic action. It's like they're playing Coleco, the electronic quarterback or something.
So this memo, page 4, it gets into recommendations. Mm-hmm. So I'm just I'll read each one and we can talk about it. So first, make the program a trifle more believable in terms of dialogue and acting, which could help in eventually winning some adult viewers. Boy, they didn't do that, did they?
Well, define believable. I'd like to know what they mean.
Well, from reading the whole thing, I feel like he means that it should be a little bit more like a standard TV drama, series where it's not so goofy.
Right, and on page 2, there's a number of complaints about, even with the laugh track, he writes, a considerable number of viewers appear to be confused as to how seriously to consider the program. Quote, if this is satire, it's one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. If this is satire. Quote, if this program was meant to be a comical force, then I believe it was successful. Even with the laugh track, they're still saying if it's meant to be a comedy, then it's pretty funny. And I couldn't decide if it was supposed to be a comedy or not. It isn't very funny if that's what it is intended to be. Some viewers mentioned the laugh track was somewhat, quote, disturbing. Quote, I would have liked it better if it had not been a comedy. Quote, it's a comedy and not a dramatic program like I expected. Quote, laughter in background wasn't placed at right time. Serious scenes were being laughed at. That probably means that the really overly serious scenes had laugh track, inserts in them, and laughter in wrong places. So that makes me think that maybe their problem with the viewers who said these kinds of things, their problem with the laugh track wasn't that it was at the wrong points in Semple's script as written. The problem was they didn't understand that those moments were supposed to be funny because they were overplayed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at before. Yeah.
I get it. Okay, sorry I missed that. It is an interesting problem, though, and a fascinating one. How do you add a laugh track to a campy show as opposed to a show that's filled with one-liners?
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. That just laugh track doesn't work in some kinds of comedy.
You're up. Yeah, I'm totally on your wavelength now.
Yeah, at the bottom of the second page, it gives quotes like, "to put on, unrealistic and foolish." Not a real person, can't take him seriously, talking about Batman, too phony, unbelievable. So I think the recommendation is saying, make him a little bit more believable as a person, not so goofy.
I'm beginning to get the sense that this entire sample group was not really a sample group at all. In fact, it was one man, and that man was Buck Henry. He doesn't get it. He doesn't think it's funny.
Recommendation number 2. Continue using action, excitement, and suspense, which the children responded favorably to. In addition, wherever possible, make use of the Bat car. It doesn't even know the word Batmobile yet. The Bat car and the scientific instruments in it in the Batcave. Well, they definitely did that.
Although the direction of Jill St. John in falling into the Bat Diamond or into the nuclear pile is some of the worst. Yeah, the atomic pile. Sorry, is some of the worst physical acting I've ever seen. The staging is just terrible. She's screaming help while she's hanging onto the rails and standing on a 2-foot catwalk that actually supports her quite well. Why is she screaming?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell why she feels like she's in danger and why she keeps, getting into worse situation.
Yeah.
What's the point of claiming that?
Batman, help, save me from myself. For some reason, I'm compelled to throw myself off the railing, even though I'm standing on my own 2 feet quite handily at this moment.
Yeah.
Pretty unbelievable. Maybe it's unbelievable because so many kids will be watching. They want to make it look, like a safe death. Or who knows? She followed all the safety rules and yet she died anyway. At least she tried her best.
Number 3, create a slightly more believable and less conceited image for Batman. Well, we could argue whether he ever seemed conceited. In future episodes, it would appear desirable to have Batman appear more intelligent in relation to Robin. Well, yeah, definitely, and I think they did that.
Might we be seeing the formation of a new, Bat commandment for the Bible here?
Yeah.
One that Semple hadn't thought of before writing the pilot.
Yeah, don't just assume that Batman is intelligent. You have to show that he's intelligent, and he
has to demonstrate
the
it in
leader of
action.
Robin. Okay, and number 4, continue using some humor, some being underlined. This appears to create some favorable impression on the adults underlined, although in the episodes tested, the primary audience, children, did not laugh. This possibly indicates that children might not have understood the humor and do not want to laugh since they consider Batman a serious character. Yes, definitely.
Right, for us, the humor of Batman when we were, 10 and 7 or so, or 9 and 6.
Yeah, 9 and 6 at the beginning.
9 and 6. Its main function for us was to convince our grandmother that it was okay to watch the show when our parents weren't around.
Well,
but it's the spoof, I remember saying, because I didn't understand that it was a spoof. The syntax escaped me.
Yeah, of course, I was 3 years older. I think, but a lot of the humor was lost on me, too. I understood that it was supposed to be humorous to somebody, but most of it I didn't get. I think we did laugh at the parachute pickup service.
Yes, I think we understood that was meant to be humorous. I think also the transformation of the Gotham Reservoir into strawberry jam that tasted like strawberry axle grease, that was pretty funny.
I think some of it was pretty straightforward humor that we got, but the more kind of tongue-in-cheek aspect we didn't always get.
Right, like when Batman says in walking into the What a Way to Go cafe, or the club, he says, I'll go stand at the bar. I wouldn't want to arouse, I wouldn't want to attract attention. That would not have been funny to us. We would have taken that completely seriously. Yeah. Well, let's take a look at the numbers.
Okay, yeah, I'm still kind of baffled by these numbers.
Okay, well, let's see. So test results, and I'm not wearing my reading glasses at the moment because they're downstairs, and the printing is awfully light on my paper copy of this mimeograph, but let's see. Half-hour drama, so there's an instantaneous reaction score, which I think comes from the dials that the members of the sample group had to turn and suggest approval or lack of approval. I think it was on a scale from what I've found from reading New York Times reports of how ASI worked back in the 70s. Excellent, very good, and then the favorable score is the excellent percent plus the very good percent. And then ITV stands for intent to view, and in that case there's a survey that the members of the test group have to respond to, in which they're asked, would you watch, of the three, if you had these three options at 7 o'clock on Tuesdays, let's say, would you watch A, Batman, B, Lost in Space, and C, the Virginian, I think.
Yeah.
So which of those three would you watch? And that's what the ITV percentage means. We have different scores for Batman episode, the first episode of the pilot. We have different scores for each of these 5. Batman number 1 with new opening, Batman number 1 with laugh track, Batman number 2, and Batman number 2 with laugh track. So 3 different scores, including one with the quote-unquote new opening, which I guess is the cartoon credits, or maybe the cold open. Not sure about that. It's not mentioned in the report.
Next to the word average, where it says B and W, is that supposed to be black and white?
B and W. Let's see.
Doesn't quite make sense as black and white.
No, it doesn't. No, I haven't determined what that means. I doubt that it means black and white, though, because it's black and white all the way through, as if they didn't even test the color.
It doesn't say color anywhere.
No.
It's Batman and Wobbin. That's what it means.
We do have even responses to questions like average for scenery and setting, average for story and plot, average for program title. I'm not sure what that means, whether that means the opening titles or whether it means the title of the show.
Yeah, I think it must be the opening titles.
And then finally, pace of program. And again, for each of these, all five have percentages. So instantaneous reaction score, the average of that is 64%. 17% called it excellent. 33% called it very good. You add 33 to 17 and you get the favorable score, which is excellent plus very good. That's 50%. And then intent to watch is half that, 24%. So, the kids still want to watch Lost in Space, I guess.
Yeah, so what puzzles me about these is you got the average numbers that are underlined, and then after that, the Batman number one new opening, and so forth. But those numbers are all lower than the average, so it can't be the average of those numbers.
Well, those numbers are the actual number, the actual respondents, the number of respondents who thought it was excellent.
Not percentages.
They're not percentages.
Okay.
No, those are the raw scores.
I see.
So, 2 members of the sample thought that Batman Episode 1 was excellent without the laugh track. 3 of them thought it was excellent with the new opening. 6 of them thought it was excellent with the laugh track. So that is actually, a bigger jump than we might have been led to believe, at least for this group, by the report. 1 thought that Episode 2 was excellent, and then 7 thought it was excellent with the laugh track. So again, quite a leap.
Yeah.
Between the unlaugh-tracked and the laugh-tracked versions of each of those episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the instantaneous reaction scores, which is the dial that I was mentioning, although I don't really know how they break that down into the numbers they've got here. Maybe they're looking at, if someone turned his or her dial to excellent or very good most of the time, that would count as a excellent score or something like that. I would need to try to do some more digging, but it's kind of hard to find information about this except almost like hearsay. Various reports from Variety and some from the New York Times and other big city newspapers in California, but also nationally. So I will try to continue to piece together more evidence about exactly how the test worked, but I wasn't able to raise anything on my academic radar, even with some help from a colleague in the department. Mm-hmm. I believe the same company, that is ASI, was also used to do audience tests of movies. They would do test screenings of movies as well. But by the late 70s, people like Michael Eisner, who was at Paramount at the time, was saying that ASI did not help with movies very much, the way that it helped television programmers to decide what to do and how to change their shows or whether to pull them. I wonder if this has something to do with the fact that the blockbuster era had just begun and there's a very different kind of expectation, for what kind of information studios needed to produce lots of blockbusters as opposed to producing, some dramas and some comedies and the occasional genre film like sci-fi or something. So it's a different era for Hollywood, and it's much different in how it's capitalized and also how it organizes its own programming, quote unquote, much different from television, whereas even 10 years before it was more similar to television.
So if I'm reading these numbers right, there were more people who thought Riddler was excellent than thought Batman was excellent?
It sure seems that way.
And Robin's even lower.
Mm-hmm.
And
let's
Molly is about even with Batman, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Well, the favorable average for lead character, which includes both Batman and Robin, is 66%, and the average for secondary characters is 40%, but that's if we count the Riddler, Molly, and Commissioner Gordon.
And Gordon scores terribly.
Yeah. It's got a 19 to Molly's 43. In fact, Molly's got the highest. That's not a percentage, that's a raw score.
Right, so 43 people liked Molly. Well, that's understandable.
Yeah, they responded favorably to her because Jill St. John.
Yeah.
The 41 respondents were favorable toward the Riddler. 19 respondents were favorable toward Commissioner Gordon. 22 favorable toward Robin and 32 toward Batman. So you're right. It's almost a 25% leap between Batman's favorability numbers, the raw score and the Riddler's.
Yeah, and those are all in the first episode without the laugh track.
That's right.
The numbers are different for part 1 with the laugh track and part 2 with and without.
Yeah, Riddler goes up to 50 positive respondents if we're looking at episode 1 with the laugh track, and 54 positive respondents for episode 2 with the laugh track.
Yeah.
With the laugh track.
Yeah, earlier on, and when it mentions this in the main text, it said a few people found Riddler's laugh annoying, which I could understand. Some people might feel that way. But yeah it seems like overall they were more favorable to him than Batman.
I found his laughter especially annoying when he puts on the elephant mask over his gas mask and is going into the tube to, attack the Moldavanian. What is it? Moldavian? What is the name of this fake country?
I don't remember now. One of those two.
Moldorkian, anyway, or Mandalorian, that's it. When he goes into the tube to go up and, take advantage of the laughing gas that they've sprayed all over the audience through the vents or the group, the party, his laughter is dubbed in, like they've dubbed some lines for him.
Yeah, since he's got a mask on.
Yes, but then he backs up just as he's about to shoot, through the tube, and he backs up and probably said something under the mask, like a line of dialogue, but instead they've dubbed in yet another laugh, as if he came back just to look at his henchman and laugh again in his Riddler way. That I found totally annoying, not because of the laugh, but because it was just dumb. Why make him do that at a point where they're just about to break, they're just about to pull off their final heist and, go retire and smoke big fat exploding cigars. Anyway, I just found that a terrible choice. And it just made everything seem goofier at a moment when goofiness was not really, on the menu.
So, yeah, it's interesting. I felt like this report doesn't really suggest what's going to happen as far as the show, at least for a little while, becoming kind of a phenomenon among adults.
Yeah, it seems pretty lukewarm. It's, neither positive nor negative exactly, with a lot of negative remarks kind of ringing in one's ears after you read the report.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, at least for season 1, I guess that of course kids were crazy for it, especially boys, I imagine, but there was a lot of talk among adults, from what I understand, too. And, of course, we knew that, like, the Minneapolis high school kids who we talked to many years later continued watching the show as high school students and enjoying it for the humor.
Right, and they fixated on the handshake when Batman shakes Robin's hand in the Batcave in the second episode of the Ark. Remember how often the Batman and Robin figures shake each other's hands in the student film? They keep stopping to shake hands as they're like running for the Batmobile. It's hilarious. So one last thing to say about the numbers anyway, the test results, is that aside from story and plot, which get kind of pretty tepid numbers, the average favorable scores for scenery and setting, for the program title, and the pace of the program are kind of hugely positive by comparison anyway. It's like 55% were favorable toward the scenery and setting, 56% favorable toward the program title, and 46. There's no average here. There's no percentage, but at least for episode 1 without the laugh track, the pace of the program got 46 yes votes for favorable. So, those numbers are, for the most part, higher than the approval numbers and favorable numbers for, the other things that are asked about.
For the story and plot. The story and plot looks pretty bad.
Pretty dismal, yeah.
45% to 49% favorable. Only 23% said excellent. Only 7 people liked Batman Part 1 without the laugh track as excellent.
But if you notice, I just noticed something, that just the number of respondents is much larger for the bottom 3 questions, that is the average for scenery and setting, for program title, and for pace, than the average for story and plot. There seem only to have been about 34 respondents.
Yeah, that's
for
true.
The
if
average
you add up
story
going
and plot.
across, just the numbers responding to story and plot are lower.
Let's see.
7, 10, and 17, that's 34.
Well, 17 is 7 plus 10. Right, that's
right. The very good and favorable together. So 27.
So 17 made up 49% of that test group, whereas there were like 69 people who counted it favorable with the question of scenery and setting and program title. So it's a much larger group. I wonder if that includes the children as well, whereas the other ones didn't, or the top question they didn't include the children.
Odd
in that sample. Yeah, so that's a little confusing. It's difficult to tell from the report exactly who is figured in each of these categories, or why one group, maybe the age group, would have been left out. There's no mention of if there were any girls among the children either. It mentions boys, but I wonder if that means that the entire sample was boys between the ages of 7 and 10 or 11.
It says intention to view Batman on Wednesday, 7:30 to 8 p.m. opposite Lost in Space and the Virginian was quite strong among children, particularly younger boys, which kind of suggests that there must have been some girls in the mix. But yeah, it never calls out how did girls respond to it.
Yeah. And it could just mean that there were older boys and younger boys.
Yeah, it could. Maybe they didn't bother with girls. I don't know.
Yes, it would be great to be able to see not, something rawer than Schrier's report, like the original ASI data, if that still exists. But who knows if it does? It probably doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, so take a look at it in the show notes and let us know if you spotted anything we didn't talk about, or if you know that we misinterpreted something or whatever.
Yeah, but even if we weren't able to cull everything from it that we might be able to cull from it as we continue to think about this document, Tim, I think that we might be able to return to this as kind of formative for some, like I mentioned, Bat commandments from the book of Bat Exodus in the Bat Bible that might have been derived from this report that Semple might have added to the fictional or actual document of the Bat Bible.
Hello, I'm Ken Holzhauser, and if you're looking for something new in comic books, may I recommend my newest comic, The Quick and the Dad, a love letter to the DC, Marvel, Archie, and Harvey comics of my youth. This comic has everything. It has spaceships, dad jokes, alien invasions, time travel, supervillains, and so many bad puns. Hopefully you'll like it. It's the cutest comic you've never heard of, and it's available today in print and digital from indieplanet.com. That's The Quick and the Dad. Join that other dynamic duo, won't you?
Coming up in our Bat audio segment, a news spot from April 5th, 1989 about the controversy over Michael Keaton being cast as Batman, including Adam West's comment on it, and we read your mail in the Bat inbox. Join us on Patreon to support the show and get bonus content. For just $2 a month, you get access to outtakes from every To the Bat Polls episode, trivia quiz videos on 20th century entertainment, and the right to vote on future Bat Polls topics. For a $4 monthly donation, you also get the right to have an ad for your own project on the show once a month, and hours of exclusive podcasts, including our monthly issue-by-issue walk through the first 50 issues, plus annuals, of Amazing Spider-Man. So go to patreon.com/deconcomics and select the level of your monthly donation. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your support.
Striving fans of the Cape Crusader, Batty.
Obsessive in his anger and fixation on revenge. But will he be portrayed that way in a new movie from Warner Brothers coming out in June? Many hardcore fans are afraid he won't. They have been writing hundreds of letters to Warner Brothers since they found out about the man cast as Batman. The controversy is whether an actor like Michael Keaton, best known for roles like Mr. Mom and Beetlejuice, can pull off the part of the Caped Crusader.
I think that he's kind of a wimp.
It don't seem that it's right, you know, that you should have a smaller man playing as a Batman.
Well, I'd rather see Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I think Arnold Keaton would be good too.
He needs some muscles on him.
I would have liked to seen a sexier person, you know, a more macho man.
Most Americans remember Batman from the silly camp 60s TV series. But Batman the comic book hero is really supposed to be a tough guy. According to the legend, the young Bruce Wayne witnessed his parents' murder by a criminal and then vowed revenge. He spent the rest of his life preparing himself physically and mentally, and then came across the Bat idea as a way to strike terror in the hearts of supervillains everywhere.
He's doing it for revenge. His parents got offed. They cacked him. He's cheesed. He's going to go out. He's going to kick the crap out of people. He could use a little therapy.
So when Warner Brothers announced a $30 million Batman movie that would treat the Gotham City crime fighter right, hardcore fans were elated until Michael Keaton was named to play the title role.
He's balding. He's short. He's not broad. He's just not there. He's not Batman.
But then this trailer started to play in movie theaters around the country. Theaters reported people coming in just to see the trailer. It shows a dark, serious movie and a tough-looking Caped Crusader.
Now I'm more willing to give it a try. I'm more willing to take a look at it.
Everyone connected with the movie at Warner Brothers refused our request for an interview on the controversy, but director Tim Burton has said he wanted a kind of everyman in the role, a real human being with psychological problems.
If I can just reverse the polarity, send out waves of super energy.
But hardcore fans like Bo Smith of Cerrito, West Virginia, just don't trust Hollywood, especially after the success of the 60s TV show and movie. Bo's afraid Hollywood will just poke fun on what could be a legitimate drama.
If I am wrong and Michael Keaton blows me away, I'll be the first to admit. You can come back here and say, hey, Bo, you were wrong, and I'll say, yes, I was. But I don't think you guys are going to be making any trips back to Cerrito.
And what about TV's Batman? Who would Adam West want in the role he made famous?
Well, naturally, I would have cast me.
Would he play him differently this time? Maybe more like the disturbed vigilante in the original comic books? Would he play him as a nut?
Batman is a nut, you're right. I mean, any guy who runs around in tights fighting crime 24 hours a day, all his life, stays peaked and ready for this is a little cuckoo. His coconut is strange. He is a nut. So you gotta understand that, and you gotta play him like that. But I tried to do Batman as a very likable nut. And yeah, well, that's enough of this.
And here's some trivia for you. Michael Keaton is actually the fourth man to play Batman. There were two serials in theatrical release in the 1940s. Here is the original. Lewis Wilson, he initiated the role in the 1943 serial Batman. And then Robert Lowry played him in the 1949 serial The New Adventures of Batman and Robin. And of course, there is no Robin in the movie because the comic book company did a poll and the readers didn't want Robin, so they killed him off.
Well, those same hardcore fans know that he's celebrating his 50th anniversary this year.
Is that right?
50.
50? Well,
yeah.
He doesn't look like he's aged a bit.
Well, and who cares if he's balding? He wears a hat anyway.
Bat Inbox. We got a little bit of response to our Neil Hamilton episode, number 206, on the all-seeing, all-knowing 66 Batman message board.
I keep forgetting I don't have to lean toward the mic. I can just pick it up.
Crispy Critter posted some information from the Scott Community High School 1967 yearbook, because we played their band's version of the Batman theme that episode. I don't know how he got a hold of this, but yeah, you can see the whole band, everybody's name, that they got an I rating at the music festival, and here's a picture of their director from the yearbook. So
yeah, it's kind of fun. There are probably multiple. I know there's at least one site that indexes as many high school yearbooks as they can handle. So that may be where this came from.
Okay, and then there's one from Batwinged Hornet. So Paul, could you take that?
I'll take that. So Batwinged Hornet writes again about the Neil Hamilton episode. Solid research on Hamilton, guys. As much as the lives of so many people associated with Batman have been discussed over the decades, much of the life of Neil Hamilton remained a mystery, or dusty references to his professional life. Further, Hamilton was such a middle-road kind of personality, meaning he never appeared to present himself in any egocentric way that would have distinguished his professional life like the bigger stars of his generation. Admittedly, every actor was not going to be Bogart, Cagney, Karloff, or Grant, or Bacall, or or Betty Davis, or Greta Garbo. But even some C-list performers such as Lester Matthews, Werewolf of London, Mysterious Mr. Moto, The Three Musketeers, etc., or Nigel Bruce, best known as Dr. Watson from Universal's Sherlock Holmes series, still had a presence that brought attention to themselves. That's the opposite of what I'm seeing in your assessment of Hamilton's career. Even after Batman brought Hamilton more attention than most actors would experience in a lifetime, he was still a quiet mystery, almost a fixture as a character, rather than a living personality known beyond the role in the manner of West and Ward. Perhaps he was just a lower-key personality, and that's fine, but I do wish he gave more interviews about his life and perceptions of being on a series about comic book characters. Yes, we would have loved to have found something like that as well, but nope.
Not the TV
a thing.
guide. The TV guide one was about all we could find.
It's hard to be a star and a private person simultaneously, but it seems as though Hamilton achieved it, and maybe that's what he wanted. So that's good. That was good for him and his family, I'm sure.
By the way, jumping back to Noiseland from the beginning of this episode, who did Buttercup. So I was thinking I was wondering if he was selling the song somewhere, and I looked at SoundCloud. He has a SoundCloud page, although Buttercup is not one of the songs on it. But I found out that he's a Swedish guy named Fredrik Naisland. So that's where he gets the Noiseland name. So maybe I'll have to listen to what he does have available for sale. I'd like to support him. He seems to be doing pretty good work.
Seems to be. He's not on Bandcamp?
I haven't looked there yet.
Okay. Me neither, obviously.
So next time, we're getting back to script. This is the Sandman script without Catwoman. And we talked about it somewhat years ago when we did an episode on the Sandman Catwoman arc, but we'll dig into it a little bit more next time.
Yes, our research will include going back to the original podcast, the episode podcast.
We learned a lot from our old podcasts. Like, oh yeah, I remember talking about that. Hadn't thought about that in years.
It's like a time capsule of the research we did then that we can now, add to and read the script now. Our past selves seem to be, have much better memories and are a lot smarter about the series in some ways. But we're trying our best to keep up with them. I mean, us. I mean, well, whoever that is.
Okay, so we'll see you again next month in the same Bat RSS feed. Check the show notes for links to Noiseland's Buttercup, which you hear behind me, the memo we discussed about the audience report, the early draft of the Sandman script that we'll be talking about next episode, the Batman 89 report you heard in the Bat audio segment, and the 66 Batman message board thread we read from in the Bat inbox. If you'd like to drop us a line or recommend any Bat audio that we haven't used yet, let us know at batpulls@deconstructingcomics.com. You can also use that email address to make a donation to the show through PayPal. You can also comment on the thread for each episode and each script at 66batman.com/forums or on our blog at tothebatpulls.libsyn.com. And a reminder, we'd really like to hear from you about what should have been in the Bat Bible. A Doe Prize hangs in the balance. We're on Twitter at Decon Comics and on the Deconstructing Comics channel on YouTube. You can hear outtakes from this and every episode of To the Bat Pulls and vote for topics for future episodes by supporting us at patreon.com/deconcomics. You can also help us out by shopping via deconstructingcomics.com/Amazon, by sharing our episodes on your social media, and by subscribing to the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And spread the word. Let all your friends who are Batman 66 fans know about the show. Next month, we discuss Ellis St. Joseph's first draft of The Sandman Cometh. Don't forget to check out the script in this episode's show notes and comment on it in the Bat message board for possible inclusion on our next episode. See you then.
Little buttercup, dear little buttercup, though I could never tell why.
A little louder.
But still I'm called buttercup, poor little buttercup, sweet little buttercup.
To the Bat Pulls is a production of DeconstructingComics.com.